Hello, people. Hope you had a nice day. It's the evening here in London, and I'm a bit tired. But I wanted to read you something before I go to bed, and I didn't know what to say really. So I suppose that's why I want to focus on the reading. But there's a very beautiful chapter from a Neville Goddard book, and let's face it, all of his chapters are beautiful. But this one I used to listen to every lunchtime at work. It was a recording on a YouTube clip, and I don't know where it is anymore. And if anyone finds it, please put the link here, because I really loved it. It was between 15 and 20 minutes long. I think it was by You Are Creators, and it was, they had the pictures of dreams, like people achieving their dreams. It was like a motivational YouTube clip with his words, and it was lovely. And I would just escape into that, away from the world of work, where I've never felt that I've totally belonged. So I hope one day I can be doing something more suited to my more spiritual, not personality, but my spiritual self. So it's called Thinking Fourth Dimensionally, and it's from Neville Goddard's book Out of This World. And I think it's about 6 pages long, so suddenly it's very light again. I don't know why my computer just has a mind of its own, but it does. I'm not going to read it all. I'll read a little bit, and you tell me what you think of it anyway. And it starts off with some scripture from the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 29. And now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, ye might believe. Many persons, myself included, have observed events before they occurred. That is, before they occurred in this world of 3 dimensions. Since man can observe an event before it occurs in the 3 dimensions of space, life on Earth must proceed according to plan. And this plan must exist elsewhere in another dimension and be slowly moving through space. I think I'm going to have to wear my glasses because it's dark. One day I'm going to get my right eye fixed, and so nothing wrong with glasses. I like wearing them sometimes, but I don't like to depend on them. That's one thing I'm going to spend my money on. Anyway, back to the important things. Where was I up to? Through R space. I couldn't read the R. If the occurring events were not in this world when they were observed, then to be perfectly logical, they must have been out of this world. And whatever is there to be seen before it occurs here must be predetermined from the point of view of man awake in a 3-dimensional world. Predetermined from the point of view of man awake in a 3-dimensional world. So we are in the 3-dimensional world, and awake, spiritually awake, using the imagination. So you have predetermined whatever your plan is. Thus the question arises, are we able to alter our future? My object in writing these pages is to indicate possibilities inherent in man, to show that man can alter his future, but thus altered, it forms again a deterministic sequence starting from the point of interference, a future that will be consistent with the alteration. I don't know if, I'm always itching my nose, sorry. I don't know if it's a predetermined plan, that has existed before we were, because we are God, and God imagines everything in our world through us. So maybe there was a plan, but we're free to change it. Or maybe they mean predetermined plan, that we imagined it as we are now. I just don't know if it's further back than that. Part of the mystery, but maybe you understand it better and you can put it there. Here we go. Thus the question arises, are we able to alter our future? My object in writing these pages is to indicate possibilities inherent in man, to show that man can alter his future. But thus altered, it forms again a deterministic sequence, starting from the point of interference, a future that will be consistent with the alteration. The most remarkable feature of man's future is its flexibility. It is determined by his attitudes rather than by his acts. The cornerstone on which all things are based is man's concept of himself. He acts as he does and has the experiences that he does because his concept of himself is what it is, and for no other reason. Had he a different concept of self, he would act differently. A change of concept of self automatically alters his future. And a change in any term of his future, series of experiences. I have to read that again, sorry. A change of concept of self automatically alters his future. And a change in any term of his future series of experiences reciprocally alters his concept of self. Man's assumptions, which he regards as insignificant, produce effects that are considerable. Therefore, man should revise his estimate of an assumption and recognize its creative power. And I think sometimes we're making assumptions without words, maybe. It's just there in our being. We see ourselves a certain way, and it's having an effect. So we need to remind ourselves regularly to assume the best for ourselves and to imagine a really positive concept of ourselves as well. I was saying in the other clip, maybe just in the beginning, before you formed a habit, just be thinking on the hour what your concept of self is and what you're imagining, and assume that you are it. And just say, yeah, it's a fact. It's done. I know. Just be so confident in it, and that relaxed confidence will get you everywhere. I believe it. All changes take place in consciousness. The future, although prepared in every detail in advance, has several outcomes. At every moment of our lives, we have before us the choice of which of several futures we will choose. There are two actual outlooks on the world possessed by everyone: a natural focus and a spiritual focus. The ancient teachers called the one the carnal mind, the other the mind of Christ. We may differentiate them as ordinary waking consciousness governed by our senses and a controlled imagination governed by desire. We recognize these two distinct centers of thought in the statement, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, for they are spiritually discerned." The natural view confines reality to the moment called a now. To the natural view, the past and future are purely imaginary. The spiritual view, on the other hand, sees the contents of time. It sees events as distinct and separated as objects in space. The past and future are a present whole to the spiritual view. What is mental and subjective to the natural man is concrete and objective to the spiritual man. And you would think, just reading it on first glance, those two things would be the other way round. Because I always think of objective reality. I would think of it as something belonging to the natural man. But here they've used it with the spiritual man. I'll read that again. What is mental and subjective to the natural man is concrete and objective to the spiritual man. Because that's reality in the imagination. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we otherwise could see. We're suffering from blindness. That's really sad. And it's true, because we do have to navigate this world, and we can't walk around with our eyes closed. But when we see what's in front of us, we so easily forget that that's not all there is. But even though you can know mentally, I know that's not all there is, there's my imagination, we can be fooled by it because we've lived in this world all our lives, all our human lives. And so we don't know how much of an effect it has on us, even though we may be imagining and doing all the right things. Our senses can fool us and make us believe that that's all there is. So we have to think that don't let us be spiritually blind. Just remember, this is just how it is right now, and this will fade. But the imagination is where it's at. That's truth, that's reality. Okay, where was I up to? I just read one sentence which I'm going to repeat again, sorry. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we otherwise could see. To cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctions of reality. Yes. Often, he says. Often. So why don't we start, if we don't do it often, why don't we start with morning, noon and night? And then let's just see how it goes. But then I think most people could do that if it was like, it doesn't even have to be longer than 5 minutes, but just to do it regularly and disentangle ourselves with objective reality. It sounds good to me anyway. Earnest, concentrated thought, focused in a particular direction, shuts out other sensations and causes them to disappear. We have but to concentrate on the state desired in order to see it. The habit of withdrawing attention from the region of sensation and concentrating it on the invisible develops our spiritual outlook and enables us to penetrate beyond the world of sense and to see that which is invisible. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Romans 1:20. This vision is completely independent of the natural faculties. Open it and quicken it. Without it, these instructions are useless, for the things of the Spirit are spiritually discerned. A little practice will convince us that we can, by controlling our imagination, reshape our future in harmony with our desire. Desire is the mainspring of action. We could not move a single finger unless we had a desire to move it. No matter what we do, we follow the desire, which at the moment dominates our minds. When we break a habit, our desire to break it is greater than our desire to continue in the habit. The desire which impels us to action are those that hold our attention, the desires. A desire is but an awareness of something we lack or need to make our life more enjoyable. Desire always has some personal gain in view. The greater the anticipated gain, the more intense is the desire. There is no absolutely unselfish desire. Where there is nothing to gain, there is no desire, and consequently no action. Desire is so important. I used to reject desire completely because I felt it was contrary to the Buddhist path. And so I felt it went against being in the now. And it wasn't spiritual, wanting things. And so I always tried to be in a neutral state. And it's still, even if you're behaving like that, you're still expressing yourself, just in a different way. It's the main thing, and the thing I got wrong most of the time, was desire is fine. It's about the attachment to the desire which really messes us up. So if we can have desire and we can really feel that energy, but it's in a free way, like not a motorway, a freeway, like just not clinging onto it, like I've got to have this or I'm going to die, I'm so desperate for it. It's got to be like, like I feel the desire and I'm free in the desire. I think the energy is good, the grasping is bad. And even that's wrong because like that's good and bad and duality, but you know what I mean. We need to be relaxed in everything, I think, if we can. Relaxed in the desire so that we don't cling onto it. And then that's going to do the opposite. I think then it's never going to be realized. We have to, because how can you assume it's done if you're feeling that desperation? It has to be relaxed. One time I was in this Buddhist, I don't know what it was exactly. It wasn't a monastery, but it was where people lived and volunteered. And I overheard a conversation, and it was from a man I think he'd been a Buddhist monk for many years, and but I think he'd maybe stopped. But what he was saying, what he'd learnt, so I was all ears. And he said, I don't know the words exactly, but he said, the most important thing is to relax in everything you do, relax. And I thought, I have to remember that. It sounded right to me, because when we're uptight, I think we're paralyzed in a way. If we can relax and remind ourselves of that all the time as well. Pressure to relax. I just think it's a relaxed attention, a relaxed assumption that brings it about. And if you're hoping too hard, desiring too hard. I think, sorry, it's gone off again. That's just going to stop it from happening. You want it too much. And yeah, you want it too much. You've got to believe you've already got it. So you wouldn't be like, you'd be like more, I'm satisfied. So I think, anyway, I digress as usual. I'm going to read a little bit more, then I'll stop because otherwise it will be hours long. I don't know where I was up to. Desire, desire, desire. Yeah. The spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. The key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in ready obedience to its voice. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. That's beautiful. Unhesitating obedience. Just, I love that. To desire a state is to have it. As Pascal has said, you would not have sought me had you not already found me. That's deep, isn't it? That is deep. You got it by knowing it. Man, by assuming the feeling of his wish fulfilled, and then living and acting on this conviction, alters the future in harmony with his assumption. One more paragraph. Assumptions awaken what they affirm. As soon as man assumes the feeling of his wish fulfilled, his four-dimensional self finds ways for the attainment of this end, discovers methods for its realization. I know of no clearer definition of the means by which we realize our desires than to experience in imagination what we would experience in the flesh were we to achieve our goal. The experience of the end wills the means. With its larger outlook, the four-dimensional self then constructs the means necessary to realize the accepted end. The four-dimensional self. Every time I read Neville Goddard, I just think, why aren't you reading this every day? Even when you've been reading his work and listening to him for years and years, if you don't read him every day, I don't know, you're just, you're not going to be as inspired, that's for sure. We shouldn't underestimate that we've been living in a certain way for many years. Since we were born, we've been seeing things as it's ourself and it's external, the world. And that's in here. It takes a while to loosen it up. And even when you've loosened it up, you've got to keep doing it. Otherwise, it will start to see things as being like me and the other. Dualism. Because we've absorbed it like that from being children. And we've just got to keep studying. And I'm always saying that. Do I do it myself? No. It makes sense to me when I'm saying it. It's the laziness. It's my laziness. So I always say this, I'm going to do this from now on, but I do change a bit. I know it's important. I know this is real. I know this is how things are formed in the world. I like formed, actually, because you hear manifestations so much. And sometimes it can sound, even though we know what it means, it can sound a bit new agey. And then nothing wrong with the new age, but just like some people just bandy it around a bit too much, don't they, like me? But if I say created, then I'll get people saying, oh, but everything's already created. Yeah, you're right, so I can't use that term, but formed. Things form and then things dissipate. And it looks like it's all on the outside, but and we look like we're on the outside too. But everything's happening from the imagination. I better stop now, otherwise I will ramble on and on and on. There's a Led Zeppelin song called Ramble On. I love it. Ramble on. I can't remember it though. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Would you like to hear more another time? Or have you had enough? Could you find me the original? I'm going to look for it tomorrow. It starts off with a little clip from a cartoon. Pinky, what are you going to do tonight? Same thing we always do, Pinky. Try to take over the world. Something like that. It's an American cartoon. So tell me if you recognise that bad impression that I didn't mean to do. I think it's Pinky. Okay, anyway, it's getting dark. Time to go to bed. Hope you like that. And look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.